Hey guys, I'll let you in on how I made this beautiful dress. This particular video is the part 2 of the earlier uploaded video, which was on how to draft this dress. Now this video will be showing you how to sew from beginning to finishing. Hi guys, my name is Naya John and I'm pretty much here to save the day. Firstly, I'll begin with the interfacing of my necklines of the bodice. So if you don't know what interfacing simply means adding an additional layer that is attached to a garment or a cloth in order to add firmness or shape or structure. In fact, just to support those areas. Example are collars, curves, waistbands, pockets, hems, and all of that. So that's what interface mean. Now I'm interfacing a V neck line. A V neckline is one of the easiest neckline to interface, but if you do not do it properly, you may end up creating a U neckline. So you cut out a rectangular piece of fabric like this, one that you know can go across the shoulders of your dress and also is a little longer than your neckline, and that's what I've done. The length of this interface is 10 inches. Okay, now make sure that you do not cut out the neck area of your interface. Leave it as block as it is. It's easier to sew out the neckline on your interface first before cutting out the neckline. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to place the neckline on my interface just like this. Then I'll take it to the sewing machine and then I'll stitch round my neckline on that interface first. Okay, you can see the way I place my main fabric on my interface. I'll stitch on the neckline on my sewing machine first before opening the interface. Now, just before we stitch down the neckline, remember the style we are trying to achieve. It has a cape on the neckline, the left area, and to give our dress a neat finishing, we'll attach that cape that will be on the neckline first before we'll now seal it up with the interface. Do you understand? Now we are going to cut out the cape that will be on that left side of the neckline before we'll stitch down our interface. So we get a random pattern paper and place it directly on the neckline, that side of the neckline that you want the cape to be at. Okay, pin up your pattern paper directly on that side of the neck line. This is the safest way to cut a cape for any neckline at all. Okay, now you are going to determine how wide you want your cape or how tiny you want your cape. Now for the upper part of my cape, I made it 3 inches. Okay, I'm going to make that upper part of the cape, the part around the shoulder, 3 inches. Then the down part of the cape is 5 inches long from the neck point. Okay, so I'll now connect that 3 I marked on the shoulder part of the cape straight to the down of my cape. Then I'm going to connect the line. Yes, this is what you should have. We're not done with the cape yet, so after we've done that, we'll go to that V part of our neck line. That V part, sorry, by V part I mean like the deepest part of your neckline, that sharp edge. Yes, from that place we'll now connect to the adjacent area of our cape to give us the finished look of the cape. So I'm going to get my ruler and simply connect from that deep V part of my neck all the way to the opposite edge of the cape. After connecting, the next thing is to just cut out. Now after cutting out, you can see me still checking on the style to see if I've gotten the exact shape of cape I should have. And then I noticed mine was a little longer and then I trimmed it off. That is why you have to do it with a pattern paper, so that when you make mistake, you can always cut another pattern paper. When you get what you want, then you place on your main fabric. Now I'm going to place my cape on my fabric. Yeah, I'm simply going to fold my fabric into two so that I'll have double layer, and then I'll place my cape on the fabric. Then I'll cut out with half inch all round. That half inch will serve as my sewing allowance. Did you get that? Try not to cut exactly on the pattern paper, because if you do not add your half inch for sewing allowance, by the time you are done sewing the cape, you're going to realize you have a smaller cape than expected. Hence, you need to add a half inch allowance. Okay, now we're going to stitch our cape. Make sure you know the place, the part where will be stitched on the neckline and the part where will be stitched on the shoulder line. So that neckline and the shoulder line should not be stitched, but the other part of the cape will be stitched down. By stitched I mean close, like a closing stitch or an interface stitch. So this is what I mean. I've gone ahead to interface the cape, and you can see that the part that will be on that neckline is actually unsewn, and then the part that is resting on the shoulder line is also unsewn. This is because the lining or the interface is going to do the finishing of those areas. Okay, you do not need to turn it over. If you turn it with stitch, it will make that particular area too heavy for the neckline. So if you want to achieve a flat effect, you should make sure you do not turn those places that will be on the neckline and the shoulder line. Now I'm using pins to secure my cape, because of course right now I'm saying there's no light, but in the process they will bring light, and then I'll do the ironing. So if you want to save time like myself, you can use pins to secure the areas where you need to iron down. Now I'll take this to the sewing machine and stitch down that neck line. I'll stitch my cape together to the bodice. Now look at that, we're already done the stitching, and yeah, this is the front of your fabric. Oh, this is the front of our dress. Now the next thing is to actually now interface the neck line. I'll bring that interface I cut earlier, and then I'll place it directly on the neckline from my shoulder, from one part of the shoulder to the other part of the shoulder. You can see how straight my own interface is. You can decide to curve yours, but for that area of the neckline, just let it be the way it is until you are done with stitching down, so that you get that V shape you want. Okay, so right now we'll pin up the area, the main fabric, we'll pin it up with the interface, and then we'll go and give our neckline the stitch. You see how I have stitched down my neckline on the interface? Very demure, very mindful. So I have done the stitching. I would open it up now. Now you're allowed to open up that neck area of your interface. I hope you understand what I did. I did not open the interface around the neckline until I was done stitching down. Alright, yes. And now I'm going to trim out the interface on that is covering my V from showing properly. Yes, you are going to notch the center of your V-neck carefully, mindfully, and then every other place you are going to notch, 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 notch. So that's it. Now I'm going to flip this over and see what we have here. You can see how sharp the V came out. You're just going to hem down if you have hemming gum, and while I wait till I have electricity to iron properly. I am pretty much impressed with how the neckline came out. There is no way in the world you follow this method and don't get the result you expect. Okay, this is really what I expect. So I'm going to move on. So I'm just securing the neck areas with pins because I am still expecting to iron this. Now this white tape here is a hemming gum. I'm going to put it under my neckline before pinning up. This is so that when I finally iron this dress, when I finally press it with electric iron, that hemming gum will help seal it up totally, and it will help make it as flat as I want. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing. It's clear enough. I'm going to put that hemming gum all round the neck area, then I'll hold it with pin. So when I finally iron it, it will be as seamless as possible. Oh my goodness, this neck is giving V neck, and the fact that it is so high, I love it. I really love it. So the excess part of my interface, I didn't remove the shoulder slope from the interface, so that's what I just removed. Now moving on, this is the wrong part of you can see the wrong part of our interface. Look at it, just take a good look at it. Yeah, this is how yours should look like if you follow the same process. So I'm yet going to hem this sharp edge of my interface. I will hem it down, but that will be when there is electricity. I've said it like 1 million times. Okay, now it's time to fix our dart. I think someone commented on the other video on how I use the dart. Please pay close attention on this particular area. Firstly, you fold your fabric into 2 equal parts like now so. Now to fix that on any dress, you definitely need your bust point measurement. To get your bust point measurement, place your tape on your shoulder. From your shoulder, you measure all the way to your nipple. That place you have your nipple is your bust point. Now my bust point is 10.5, but I'm going to add ½ inch for stitching allowance, and that will give me 11. So I marked 11. Now from that point where I have 11, right, I'm going to mark 9 inches. 9 inches. I'm going to mark 9 for the front. 9, okay? So that's it. Then from the center of my fabric, I'll mark 4. That 4 is the distance of my nipple to nipple divided by 2. That's how I got that 4. Okay, so you connect the dots, and that's pretty much it. If your nipple to nipple is 7, you divide 7 by 2, and it will give you 3.5. So the distance from your center of your fabric to where your dart is should be 3.5. Okay, please don't just follow exactly what I do, because our bodies are different, so you need to understand actually why some things are being done. Do you understand? So I'll do the same process for the other side of the bodies. I'll mark my bust point at ½ inch. Now I was highlighting something here, that when you're marking your dart, please don't place your tape on the shoulder slope. Place it on that highest part of your shoulders. Okay, so right now I'll place my tape from the highest part of my shoulder line, and then I'll mark my bust point and really just repeat this. Now I'm done with marking my dart. I want to actually cut out the cape for the hip line before stitching the dart. So if you notice very well, that design, the cape for the hip line ran from the waist of the right side all the way to the hip line of the left side. So place your tape on the highest part of your shoulder again. Please don't place your tape from the shoulder slope. Now mark your waistline. My waistline is 16, and I've highlighted 16. Okay, move to the left side. The left side, the cape is going to be on the hip area, on that hip area. So you're going to slant your paper, tilt your paper. Okay, place your tape from the highest part of your shoulder again, and then mark 26. I use 26 for myself. I'm quite tall. You can use 24. You can use 25. You can even determine how slant you want yours to be. Okay, now make sure that your cape is slanted. there's a way to slant your cape. The one that will run from the waist will actually be like 4 inch, while the one that will rest on the hip should be like 6 inches. Okay, now once you've established where you want your capes to rest, you are simply going to give the necessary finishing you need for the cape. So this is basically it. This is how I cut this tape that ran through from the waist to the hip. Remember I said the part that stayed on the waist is 4 inch, while the part that stayed on the hip side is about 6 inches. Okay, so now I'll take my pattern paper and I'll place it on my Isiagu fabric. I'll double my Isiagu just as I did for the other cape. I'll double it, make sure you have double layer, then place your pattern paper. So I tried placing my pattern paper on the double layer, but I realized it could not contain. So what I did was to cut them separately. I cut the first layer and then found a way to cut the second area. Remember to add your 1/2 inch stitching allowance. Okay, once you're done cutting, you go and stitch down exactly the same way you did for the upper cape. Okay, so I've stitched mine down and I stitch only the right side and the down of the cape. You know, the upper part of the cape, that's where we used to stitch on our main fabric, so there's no need turning it, you get. And the left side of the cape as well will enter inside the shaping seam. Don't worry, just keep watching, you definitely understand why I did that. If you decide to turn the cape all round, that part where you fix, after fixing it on your clothes, you realize that your cape will not be relaxed as you want. Now if you're recreating a design, you have to keep refreshing yourself, your mind, so that you don't do what you do not want. So now it's time to fix this cape on the front piece. I've gone ahead to sew the dart, to stitch the darts, and yes, you should do same because you put the waist cape after putting your dart. Okay, yeah, you see how beautifully that dart is, and I've not even ironed it yet. It's so fine. Okay, now let's mark where we are fixing the cape. So the tiny part of the cape is on the right side and the larger part of the cape is on the left side. Okay, now you go ahead to your sewing machine and stitch down. Moving on, still on the front piece, it's time to create the flap that we'll use for the pocket illusion. So I'm going to get my pattern paper. This one you can just cut directly on your fabric, right? So I'm going to be using a rectangle. So the wideness of my flap pocket is 7 inches, but I added extra 1 inch, and that's for stitching allowance. I'm just going to highlight it for you all to see. Then the length of this flap pocket is 5 altogether, but you know we are going to be doubling it. Like when we fold it into 2, it will now be 2.5. I know you are a bit confused, but this is what I mean. By the time we fold our flap pocket into 2 like this, it will be 2.5. Then that 1/2 inch left is for stitching down. Okay, so you can go ahead and cut this on your main fabric. So once you're done cutting, please take the flaps to the sewing machine and close both sides. We're closing only both sides. Okay, then the upper part, which we'll be using to stitch the flap on the main fabric, will be left open. You can see on the screen. Yes, so now that I have gotten my flap and my second cape, I'll take this to the sewing machine to stitch them down. Now for the back, of course, we're going to draw out our zipper allowance, clear enough for everyone to see, and then we'll mark the darts for the back. The back is quite very easy. After the darts, then we'll do the interface. So let's begin. Okay, remember that while we were cutting, we used 1 inch allowance for the zipper, but if yours is 2 inch, please maintain the same 2 2 inches. Okay, so I didn't want the back to be covered up, like just bare and there, so I decided to add a little tweak to mine. So I created this V-ish keyhole at the back of my dress. So that's what we'll be creating now. From the neckline, we're going to mark 3 inches, going by 3 inches. Okay, then from that shoulder line, from the highest point of your shoulder line, okay, make sure you place your tape on the highest point of your shoulder line. Mark 9 inches. Okay, mark 9 inch. From that 9 inch, we'll connect all the way to that point we marked 3 in a slant manner. Just follow what you see on the screen. You're going to place your ruler on that 9 and then take it all the way to that point where you have 3 inches. Okay, now this is what you should have. You will now use your ruler again to connect that 9 inches to that 3 inches. Connect back your slant line to the 3 inches. This is what you should have. If you know you do not want your back to be all exposed, this is okay. Don't make yours too much, except of course if you are intentionally about revealing your back. So go ahead and cut out. That will give you that V keyhole effect. So this is simply how to get the Queen Annish kind of back neckline for the back. So I decided to open mine up a little bit, and that's that about the neckline. So we're going to interface right about now. The same way we cut a block or a rectangle for the interfacing of the front, the exact same process, that's what we'll repeat for the back. My interface is going to stop where my neckline stopped. I mean that V-ish, yeah, that's where it's going to stop. So I'm going to double my fabric. I've already doubled it because the back is double. So I'll cut out, I'll make sure it is straight until of course I have stitched down my neckline. You remember the process we did for the front now? That's the same process we're just going to repeat. Once you're done cutting that, keep it aside, go and iron it, keep it aside, and let's mark our dart so that when we go to the sewing machine we'll do everything at once. So for the dart, place your tape on the highest part of your shoulder line. Yes, when you place your tape on that point, you're going to mark 11. That 11 inches is the starting point of our dart. Now for the wideness, you're going to place your tape on the zipper allowance, not the beginning of the fabric. Place it on that zipper allowance and mark 4. You already know why we are using 4, right? Then the length of the dart will be 10. You know we use 9 for the front. We use 10 for the back. Yes. So that is it. You connect the points you threw. Now, how did we get 4? In case you've forgotten, the measurement of your nipple to nipple divided by 2. Mine is 8. Nipple to nipple is 8. Divide by 2, 4. That's how we're using 4 for the wideness of the dart. Okay? Now, the length of the dart for the back is 10. And that's it. Oh, we are done. So I will take this to the sewing machine. I will sew my dart. I would fix the interface. Repeat the same process for the second side. Pico. Okay? No need to show you now. You already know what to do. Let's go to the sewing machine. So you can see that I have gone ahead to stitch down the darts, and also I have ironed the zipper allowance inside. This is because I would like to shape in the dress. I would like to shape both the front and the back before putting my zipper. That's how I prefer sewing. Okay, but if you're the type that put your zipper before you shape your clothes, go ahead and attach your zipper. Now it's time to interface the neckline of the back. So guys, this is me stitching down the interface on the back. You see that I did not cut out my interface until I'm done stitching. Now that I'm done sewing, I can now cut out the excess part, unnecessary part that I do not need from the interface. And then I'll give my neckline a very good notch round about your neckline, so that it will be very easy for you to turn it. And when you turn it over to the right part, it will be as flat as you want. So this is what you should have by the time you're done. When you turn it to the right side, this is what you should have, okay? So I've gone ahead to iron the neck areas of my back piece, both back pieces. So what I'll do now is to move over to the front of my dress and then stitch down all the capes and flaps. I said earlier that for the right side we are going to be starting the cape on our waistline, which is 16, and I've marked it. Then I said on the left side we'll be using 26 thereabout, but I changed my mind because it was too slant. And yes, so I took it up, I took it higher to 21 at the left what side. What we have is 16 inches at the right side and 21 inch at the left side. So I'm now going to place my cape using pins to secure. It will run from that waistline all the way to that 21 inches I marked, and it's going to give you that perfect slant effect you want. It won't be too slant and it won't be straight. So I'll just pin up right While now. Pinning up, you will see that area where the arrow will highlight. Please let your cape start from there. Let it not start from the beginning of your fabric. If your allowance is 1 inch, take 2 inches away before putting the cape. If your allowance is 2 inches, take 3 inches away before putting the cape. That's why the arrow has been highlighting there, okay? That part, that slanted area, the cape is not supposed to enter the stitching allowance, okay? Now, if you're done pinning down, you'll now take this to your sewing machine, take your flap over this pinned area and then give it a proper stitch. You can see I've shown you where to stitch, so we'll take this to the sewing machine right about now and we'll do this stitching. So I've gone ahead to iron this. You can see what our cape looks like. Right about now we'll fix the flaps. Now the flap, I would like it to be 2 inches above the hem of my gown. So the full length of this gown is 35. I'll remove 2 inches and that will give me 33. So the flap will be on that 33. So place your tape from the highest point of your shoulder and mark 33. That's where the flap should be rested. Then on the upper part of the flap should be on 30. So your flap should be between 30 and 33. Okay, now for the wideness, place your tape from the center of your gown, from the center of your front piece. Indicate that center with either electric iron or chalk. Let something indicate that this is the center, okay? Then place your tape on that center. Mark 3 inches on both sides. I'll mark 3 inches on the right side and I'll mark 3 inches also on the left side. And that's where the cape will begin. The flap, rather, will begin from that 3 inches I just highlighted. I'll do the same for the other side, and that's that about fixing the flap. I'll go ahead and pin up with pins and then stitch down on the sewing machine. Once we are done stitching down the flaps, the next step will be to stitch the front piece and the back piece together. So you guys, the part 3 of this video will show how to actually join the front piece and the back piece together, how to shape a dress, and how to fix a sleeve on the dress. This tutorial is very, very detailed and I don't want this one to be too long. So you guys, see you in the next video. Bye. Now what you do is to get the shoulder line of your front piece and the back piece, hold them together. You should have like 4 layers. the front piece and the interface, the back piece and the interface. That's 4 layers. So you're going to hold them together. Let me take this sewing machine so it will be clearer. You're going to hold them together like this, and then use one layer of the back, and then take it all the way in such a manner that it will cover the front piece. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Then take the back interface and then take it round the front piece. There are 4 layers in this shoulder line because you interface the shoulder line of the back and the front. So you use the interface of the back to just enclose the front piece, and then you stitch down. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, that's the process. I've done it for both sides, and the next thing we'll do now is to start shaping the front piece and the back piece together. We'll start marking our circumferences and making my perfect body size. So this is how the result should be if you actually got what I was trying to explain.